Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette. As we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts and other stuff they're involved in. My guest today is a martial artist, actor, author, businessman. During his martial arts career, he was a WK super middleweight world champ from 1982 to 1987. He competed extensively across Asia, Europe, and the United States, establishing himself as a kickboxing phenom. He founded World Films, Inc., serving as an executive producer on movies like The Butcher, The Last Sentinel, and Soft Target. Transitioned to the business world where he opened 250 educational centers across 24 states and 10 countries. In 1999, he founded Children of America, a company dedicated to providing high-quality childcare and education. His new book is titled Three-Time World Champ, The Death-Defying True Story of a Kickboxer turned drug smuggler turned business icon. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Ted Pryor. How are you doing today, Ted?
Good. How are you? Glad to invite me on your show.
Hey, I appreciate your time. I know how busy people can be, so I truly appreciate it. I mentioned the book in the intro, and I definitely want to get to that. But first, what we do with all my guests, I want to go back to the beginning. And I know you mentioned you were a kickboxer and did martial arts most of your life. I want to know where that started. I want to know where that first interest came from, that first spark that kicked off your martial arts journey.
Well, it's funny. My brother, Tony, he was older than me. And, he was always my protector. And when I was a skinny, scrawny kid growing up in Queens, New York. And, I had a good arm. And if there was anything, pensy, pinky, any kind of sports, I was on it, stickball, things like that. But I was really skinny, scrawny, and I had a good arm. And when people used to pick on me, I'd throw a rock, hit them in the head, and I'd run like hell. I'd go home. My brother would be there, and he'd always be there to protect me. And one day, I ran home, and my father was home. My father used to work from 7 in the morning to 12 at night. And he would, always gone. This particular day, I ran home and 3 kids running after me because I hit them with a rock on top of the head or something. And my father was there, and he opened up the door, and and I opened up the screen door. He opened up the door, and he seen the kids come on, and he knows what I've been doing. So he shut the door, and the kids wailed on me and beat me up. And I was in there, and I was crying. I said, why'd you do that, Dad? He goes, son, I'm going to tell you 3 things. He goes, 1, I'm not going to be here to protect you. 2, your brother may not be here to protect you. He goes, and 3, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to take you up to this karate school. It's called Olympic Karate. Jim Martin was the sensei. He goes, I'm going to pay 1 month, and then you're on your own. So he took me up there for that 1 month. And I was a guy that had ADHD. I was not, I had trouble in school. I barely graduated high school. And, I was like not confident, and it resonated with me. It just changed my life that I didn't even know how much it changed my life, but I got confidence. It made my whole inspiration on trying to win and not lose and not have, not pick fights and not be a bullied on or be a bully. And just like, it was just from the time first day I went into that martial arts school, I never could get out of it. I became the dojo boy before there was a dojo boy.
Okay.
In the late 70s. And, I did everything I could. I got a second job pumping gas, mowing lawns just to go to karate every day. And it was a life-changing experience, and it was the right choice I made. And, the toughest thing I think happened to me is once I got into the sport, once I became a world champion, then I had to ruffle my feathers. When should I retire? I don't want to be that guy that, has to keep going, thinking that I can stay there too long and get hurt. So, that was another tough decision. Tough decision to get in, tough decision to get out.
Okay. So think back. I know you went on to become a kickboxer. When you were in the karate school, did you get involved in competition? And if so, do you remember your first tournament?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I was not really good in forms or they call them katas. I was mainly kumite sparring. And just like Chuck Norris, good friend. And basically, it's point fighting, and close is better, but there's no contact back then. So you have to basically throw a roundhouse kick and stop it at the guy's nose. And if you hit him, no good. If you get it close, you get a point. And back fist and everything was close, but you couldn't touch. And that was to show that you were able to throw something full power and stop it right before you smash a guy's nose. So it was point fighting, kumite, and I was good. I had so many trophies. I won almost every competition that I enrolled in. I enrolled in every one of them. And, it was just this fighting part of it it was in my blood. I loved it. And, but it was different. It was more of a martial arts, and it was more of control fighting, control kicking, control punching. It was more back fist. And then, as the martial arts started getting further and further down the road, then it became, full contact karate. And when the PKA came around and the WKA came around, then it became PKA karate and WKA karate. And basically it was called full contact karate. Mm-hmm. And then after full contact karate, obviously it became kickboxing, and now it's MMA. So it's really grown the sport. But yeah, I was really, really into the kumite fighting and martial arts. And going on to my first professional fight, if you want to hear that.
Definitely.
Chuck Norris was the head referee. It was in Nassau Coliseum. And I was going up against Bruce Lee's, Teddy Wong, Bruce Lee's first student that ever went pro. Mm-hmm. And it was 1978. Chuck was the head referee. And I'm fighting Joe Hess's heavyweight champion of the world. And he just won his title. He beat Ernie Hernis. And basically, he was working my corner. And the people are cheering. And there's probably, 4,000 or 5,000 people there. It's a 3-round fight. And they're saying, go fag, go fag, go fag. And I go back to my corner and I'm sitting there. I go, Joe, do you hear them saying my name? He goes, yeah. And he's laughing. I go, what are you laughing about? He goes, they're saying, go fag, go fag. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, they can't say Thad because my real name is Thaddeus. And I went short by Thad. And I said, they're calling me a fag? He goes, yeah, go fag, go fag. Listen to him. This is great. And I go, no, this is not good. So the fight finishes. I'm at the Nassau Coliseum. Chuck holds my hand up, and I jump out. They go to interview me. I jump out of the ring, and I literally run back to the payphone, old rotary phones. They didn't have cell phones back there in '78. Yep. And I called my father. I go, Dad, I got to change my name. He goes, why, son? Because it's a beautiful name. I go, Dad, they can't say Thad. They're calling me fag. I got to go to Ted Pryor. And that's when I started my career as Ted Pryor. And it's funny, today, all my old friends know me as Ted Pryor. My business friends all know me as Thad Pryor. So I thought that'd be a good little story. Even though I'm not trying to be condescending, I don't care one way or the other. I'm good with all that stuff. But back in those days, the slang was, go fag and all that kind of stuff. So, but I thought it was, looking back and listening and watching, I had a tape on it and I was listening to it and I was just, oh my God, can you imagine that?
Wow, that's crazy.
I thought that was pretty funny.
So was it just your love of competition that led you to go from because like you said, the point karate you were doing, there was no contact. What was it that made you think, I really want to get hit? I mean, obviously it's a very different sport when you're going from no contact to full contact. What went through your mind that led that decision to want to do full contact?
It's funny you say that because I was so good at getting close. And to this day, my son's 9 years old and he's in martial arts, and I spar him. I'll throw my kicks or my hand and I'll bring it from an inch from his nose, and he doesn't even blink. He knows I'm not going to hit him. And the control of being able to do that is from years and years and years of experience. Mm-hmm. I've been in martial arts since I was 12 years old, and now I'm 66, grandmaster, and basically still have all my moves just as good as I had them, but they're just a lot slower.
Yeah.
but at some point in my life, I said, I really want to see what that kick can do and what that punch can do. And, I never knew. I mean, we knew by punching, 2 inch or inch or 2 inches of wood, you break it through your fist, or you kick a side kick or a roundhouse kick, you break the wood in half. And that was good. And I knew that it was powerful speed, but you never knew really. I mean, like boxing, you knew you hit a guy and the guy fell down. But in martial arts, it was close, but close is better. But no one really knew how powerful the kicks are, how good the punches were. And then as you realize and you start doing full contact karate back then, kickboxing in my day, and now MMA, now you realize that, everybody in martial arts, and I kind of like mostly the true martial arts guys that really never got into kickboxing or never got into contact. Now they have contact in all karate and martial arts. But people have a different perspective when it went to full contact, because when you throw a left jab or a right hand or a side kick, the guy didn't go down. Well, our beliefs when we're in martial arts, you hit the guy one time and he's done. He's gone.
Right.
Well, that's not so true, is it? I mean, you punch a guy, he's still standing. Well, I got to hit him 3 more times. So, when I was in martial arts, I would throw a back fist and you give it all you got. Boom! Thinking that you hit him with a back fist like Bruce Lee, the guy would go down on the ground. Well, that was the movies. That was Hollywood. It's not realistic. But we never knew that wasn't realistic until we started full contact karate. And we realized you got to punch, kick, keep on punching, kicking, and you have to hit the right spots to get the guy to go down. So that was really intriguing to me. And I wanted to, really become a great martial artist and a great kickboxer. And to better my skills, the reason why, I became a world champion kickboxer, and I fought Don Wilson. He beat me. I beat him. Then his brother, Jimmy Wilson, said, you know what? You guys, I don't want you fighting no more. You're like brothers because I'm managing both of you. I said, okay, you don't want the grudge match? He goes, no, save it for someone else. And I said, okay. So he managed me and him, and he got Don as the light heavyweight champion of the world. He had me as a super middleweight world champion of the world. And we fought all over the world together. And we used to laugh and say, when he was doing Kung Fu and I was doing Taekwondo, I go, it's funny, we used to think one kick or one punch would do it. I go, yeah. And like Don was a great kicker, and he never knew I was a great kicker because really my skills was I went down to Fifth Street Gym and I sparred with Roberto Duran. I sparred with Sugar Ray Leonard. Angelo Dundee was my boxing coach. And my advantage to a lot of the martial arts guys is that I could box. I was like Steve Shepard. Steve Shepard and I were really good boxers besides being able to kick. Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody was like really in the martial arts world. They didn't have that. They threw punches that were like, they were kind of like haymakers, sort of like today, like the MMA, like most of the MMA fighters, I look at them and they wrestle. They're on the ground 4 minutes out of the fight, 5-minute fight, and I'm a little bit skeptical of it. And because jiu-jitsu is a fancy word now for judo, because jiu-jitsu is really judo. What they're doing is judo. Jiu-jitsu, that's the new fancy name. But when you look at the martial arts, Miss Martial Arts, a lot of guys really don't know how to throw punches. They're throwing, they're winging their arms instead of moving their hips and like more like a boxer. Some fighters, not all of them, some fighters have good boxing skills, but the majority that I've seen don't have that boxing skills. And the stand-up fighting like kickboxing was such an exciting sport when you see, Benny the Jet jumping around, spin hook kick and hits the guy in the head and knocks him out. I mean, that was some exciting stuff. And when Joe Corley wanted me to possibly bring back the PKA with him, I'm still thinking about it, but, it's just we need a longer business plan. And stand-up fighting is much, much more exciting, in my opinion, than MMA fighting. Mm-hmm. MMA fighting is more of a judo sport than it is stand-up fighting because they're on the ground 4 minutes, on a 5-minute fight. It's a little bit different. So that was my perspective on the full contact.
Okay.
And,
So at any time in your martial arts career, did you ever get involved in the teaching side of martial arts?
Oh yeah, I had my own karate school.
You did? Okay.
And, it was called Hollywood Karate, and I had black belts, and I taught children from 5 years all the way up to 60, 70 years old. And I started my school when I was about 18 years old.
Wow.
And I had my school for many, many years, and then my sensei moved away, and Joe Hess and I hooked up together, and basically, we converted my students with his students. We had a couple of martial arts studios. So, yeah, I used to teach, a great deal of children and kids, and a lot of fun, a lot of black belts. And, it was good times.
Nice. And if I remember right from the book, I didn't get to read the whole thing, but I tried to go through some parts of it just to get some stuff. But did you also work as a bodyguard?
Yes, I was a bodyguard to Elvis Presley and also for a week with Don Johnson.
Nice.
Elvis Presley was a gig that Shelton Parker, he was Elvis's personal bodyguard. And Elvis, when he went to Vietnam, he learned martial arts, a little bit of it. And he just loved martial arts. And when he started traveling, he wanted, at that point in time, there was kickboxing, there was world champions, and Joe was a heavyweight champion. I was a middleweight champion. And then Shelton Parker called us up and said, guys, Elvis wants you guys to bodyguard him. This is the last 2 years of his life. And I says, yeah, we'll do it. And so we did it. And I have a scarf on my wall here, that Elvis gave me. But it was interesting. It was probably the best I've had several bodyguard jobs. That was probably one of the most fun because, we were protecting him from beautiful women. and you'd go to these concerts and you'd see, thousands of gorgeous women, and they'd rush the stage, and we'd have like probably 20 or 30 guys at the stage, and they would get through them. And the last two people before they got to Elvis was me and Joe. And Joe's like 6'6", 230 pounds, and I'm 5'11", and 175. And so a few people would get through, and a couple of girls got through. Instead of doing a chokehold around the neck, you do a chokehold around their body. And one lady, I'll never forget it, she had his scarf. Elvis threw a scarf out, and this beautiful girl had the scarf, and she's running up. She was real close to Elvis. I grabbed her by the waist, and she took the scarf, put it around my neck, and started choking me. And as she's choking me, I'm bringing her to the floor, and then she gave me a kiss on the side of my cheek. She said, "I'm sorry." And then I said, "Okay, get her out of here." And they took her off the stage. But it was a lot of fun, and until I got that call that Elvis was dead at 42 years old. So we bodyguarded him for about a year and a half before it happened. He was at the end of his career. Mm-hmm. He was about 340 pounds. He was really, really overweight, and he was he was conspiring all the time. He was sweating and just miserable. He didn't want to be touched. He loved Joe and I and Shelton Parker. We talked stories about kickboxing, about all kinds of stuff. And he was a real guy's guy, but he was a little bitter towards the end. And you can't blame the guy. His manager robbed him, took all of his money, and he was basically doing the last 2 years of his life because he had no money. And his business manager was a gambleaholic and took all of his money. And the guy had to go back on the road. And he was, he was a little bit heartbroken. His mother died, lost his wife. He was kind of angry, but he always was so respectful and so nice to Joe and Shelton and I. That it was good, but it was sad, but it was an exciting time for sure.
That's cool. Yeah, and I'm only 50, but I grew up an Elvis fan. My mom was a huge Elvis fan, so I seen all the movies. I think I own 12 Elvis albums on vinyl. I have his whole CD collection. So yeah, definitely cool. I mean, I've got to interview quite a few people that met Elvis now, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that's a good story.
It was a lot of fun, doing that. So that was one of my fun bodyguard jobs.
That's cool. So I got to ask you, completely off subject, favorite Elvis song?
Oh, favorite. I mean, I got it. That's a tough question.
Yeah, mine's Suspicious Minds. I don't know why that one. I always pick that one.
That's a good one.
I love that song.
I mean, there's so many. I mean,
it is tough. That's a lot of songs.
he was the king of rock and roll. He was just awesome, money.
Oh yeah. I only regret I never got to see him live or anything. Obviously, I was way too young.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was a cool guy. I mean, when we once he got to the hotel and stuff, and we played cards, and he was we had a lot of fun. We laughed and a lot of jokes and stuff, and he was a good man.
That's good. Nice.
It's a shame what his manager did to him, though.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad they finally made the movie that kind of told the truth about it, and that his manager ripped him off.
Yeah, I actually lived it, for 2 years. I mean, he was just trying to survive. He was just trying to keep his house and everything, and he had literally no money.
Yeah. So. And it's cool how much he respected martial arts. I mean, he was definitely
he loved martial arts, and black belts was his key guys, and then. It was all about, like, he wanted to meet Chuck Norris, and we arranged that for him and everything. And just, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
Really cool.
Now, over that 5-year career when you were doing the full contact and you were the world champ for like 5 years, is there one fight that stands out?
Well, the world title fight with Steve Mackey was a good one. And then I tried to make a comeback after I got out of prison. It was in the 90s, and it was a good fight. I should have knocked him out, but I thought that I was going to come back and get my title back. But this guy was a big guy and strong, and I should have put him away, and I couldn't. And then they said, everybody said, you look great. Don worked my corner. He goes, "No, you're good. You're going to win the title." I said, "Guys, I'm done." They go, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You know what? In my day, I would have knocked this guy out. You got to know when to fold him." I says, "I should have knocked this guy out." I go, and they go, "It doesn't matter. You don't have to knock him out." I go, "I understand, but I know I should have knocked this guy out." And I says, I don't have what I had. I don't have the thunder I used to have. And I'm 31 years old. And I go, "It's time for me to hang it up before I get hurt." That was it.
Yeah, at least you knew that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some don't realize that until it's too late. So it was good that you caught that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously going to prison. So, we got to talk a little bit about, obviously the book. Tell that story. I know reading about how was it the head of the Miami Mafia?
Yeah. Well, back then it was really the cartel,
Okay.
and, I was a law enforcement guy. Joe and I used to train all the police departments in Florida at the Broward County Police Department. And it was a college, and we would train self-defense, riot control, cuffing people, bringing them, choking people, losing their air without, killing them, obviously. And I used to train Secret Service, FBI, DEA. So I was in the trenches on the good side of my life. I was fighting for a world title at that time, and my mom was like 46 years old, and she got cancer. She had pancreatic cancer, and she was dying, and she was like doing chemo, and she got a lot of really sick and always in pain. And my brother, when I was younger, my brother used to smoke pot, and I used to find his pot, and I flush it down the toilet, and then he'd beat my butt before I was in martial arts. And I looked at the marijuana helping my mother. She wasn't sick. She didn't get nauseous, and she wasn't in pain when she smoked pot. And my brother-in-law said to me, "Hey, you want to make $5,000?" Now I'm teaching the cops every day. I'm a goody two shoes. I'm working at this correctional council. I'm working as a correctional council officer in Pompano, Florida, which guys coming out of prison, it's their last leg. They go to this work release center and you find them jobs. I was watching these inmates coming out of the state prison. And so basically I was exposed. My brother-in-law at the time said, "You want to make $5,000?" I said, "Sure." So he said, "Just take this car and bring it across Alligator Alley," which is over to Fort Myers from Hollywood, Florida, and I'll give you $5,000. So I said, "Yeah, that's easy enough." He goes, "In fact, take your girlfriend with you. Take Tanita with you too." So I took my girlfriend, who wanted to be my first wife. We go over to Fort Myers, drop off some weed. I'd never asked what was in the car, but you didn't have to be a rocket scientist in the late 70s, early 80s, what it was. And I got $5,000. And I says, "Holy shit, I'm only making $7,000 a year at the police academy and also at this work release center." And so I did it, 7 or 8 times and had like 20 grand saved up in the safety deposit box. I thought I was a gazillionaire, in the 70s, $20,000. That's, 20,000 is like probably, 100,000 today. Right.
Yep.
And so, I did that, and I'd still be teaching the police force and everything. And then I just, I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to buy a boat." So I bought a boat, and then me and my brother started bringing about 2,000 pounds of pot in on boats, and did that for a while. And then the guy that I met, his name was Ray Thompson. They called him the little guy, and he was like the big shot in marijuana. He was probably the biggest guy in the country at that point in time. So he wanted me to bodyguard him. So I bodyguarded him for a while, and he wanted somebody that was a martial artist and a kickboxer. And I was, at that time, I think I was 5th in the world. I wasn't a world champion yet. And he wanted me to be his bodyguard. But he wouldn't let me do any of the pot smuggling because he wanted me clean. Not that he was a good guy, it's just that he wanted me not in the business so that he can trust me. And he didn't want me to be around all of his guys that were always drunk, drugged up. He wanted me around the drugs and stuff. He didn't want me doing drugs. I didn't do drugs. And, most martial art guys, they don't drink or do drugs. But so he wanted to keep me away from that. And then one day he called me up. And he says, "Look, I got you. I'm in a little bit of a pinch where you drive this van from Amity Boatyard to Davie. It's got 1,500 pounds of pot." And I thought, yeah, I did that without even knowing it, back and forth to Fort Myers. So when I pulled out of the Amity Boatyard with 1,500 pounds of pot, they were staking it out. And the same guys that I trained, these guys I trained, they were rookies. I'm driving, all of a sudden I see this Camaro come behind me, real close to my bumper. And all of a sudden the lights go on. They pull me over on Davie Boulevard. I never forget it, 1981. And they pulled me out of the car and they said, "Oh my God, it's Ted Pryor out of the van." And they said, "He's dangerous. Watch it. Watch his feet." And they said, "Get your hands on the car." I put my hands on the van and I go, "Guys, take your time, easy. It's okay." They have their guns out and I go, "Be calm. I'm not going to do anything." And they go, "Be careful. It's Ted Pryor. It's Joe Hess's boy. I can't believe it." And then they cuffed me and they shackled my feet and they go, "I can't believe it's you, Ted." I go, "Yeah." I says, "Bad day for me today, boys." And so, make a long story short, they take me to the police station and I'm basically sitting in a chair and they have my hands behind me around the chair with, zip ties. And they have zip ties on my feet. And one guy's a good guy, just like Dragnet, you know, one guy's a good guy, one guy's a bad cop.
Mm-hmm.
Sergeant comes in, he knows me. He goes, Ted Pryor. He takes up a phone book. He starts smashing. He goes, I've always wanted to get you back for things. And he's smashing his telephone book. And what you do with a telephone book is they smash you with the belly and they hit you over the head with it so they don't leave marks.
Yep.
So that you can't show there was brutality. And I stood up and I just said, guys, it's not going to be a good day for you or for me. I don't, you know, and they go, what? And I go, put the book down because you're not coming over there and hit me with this. And I had no idea what the hell I was going to do. I mean, I was shackled to the chair, but I was able to stand up with the chair. The chair is like on my back, and I got my hands behind. My feet are shackled, right, with tongues. And I just said, guys, if you come, it's going to be a scary day for all of us. And the guy put the book down. He goes, we're not going to do anything, Ted. Sit down. It's okay. We're not going to, because they didn't know what I was going to do, and I had no idea what I was going to do.
Wow.
But so that's what happened, and I got arrested. And but believe it or not, you know, that was 1981, and I went to court like 6 months later. And it was called motion to suppress the evidence. And Stan Kaplan was the judge, and they called him the hanging judge. But he followed the law to the T. And he wasn't like judges today, and they go outside the law and they just do what they want. He followed the law, and basically what happened was they told police department and the cops and the DEA, they all told him that the van was the bumper was dragging, and that's why they pulled me over. They had no probable cause to pull me over, so they lied. And they said the van was dragging on the back of the floor, which it wasn't. So we got the same van out of the compound, you know, months later, and we put 1,500 pounds of weights in it, and it didn't move a quarter of an inch. And submitted it to the judge, and the judge said, so you said the truck was dragging? And the prosecutor says, yes, it was. He goes, well, then look at these photos. Is this the van? Yes, that's the van. Well, there's 1,500 pounds of marijuana. Do you think, is that thing dragging? He goes, doesn't look like it. He goes, that's exactly my point. So your deputies lied, and you went along with it, and you convicted this man. Even though he's guilty, you broke the law, and you lied to this court to convict this man. So he threw it out.
Wow.
He threw it out, and he said, Mr. Pryor, he goes, you're lucky. I should be putting you in jail today. He goes, but I'm not going to tolerate police officers to lie and to cheat to get someone behind bars, to break the law, exactly what you did. He goes, so I'm going to cut you loose today. So it was over, and then I won the title in 1982.
Wow.
And then what happened in 1982? You know, Reagan wins, and Nancy Reagan says, just say no to drugs. So guess what happens? The feds come in, and they go to the state of Florida, and they say, we got to overturn that judge's decision. So the Supreme Court of Florida overturned Kaplan's decision.
Wow.
And my lawyer called me up and says, it's back on again. I go, what do you mean it's back on again? It's double jeopardy. I'm a world champion now. He goes, Ted, I understand. He goes, but just say no. He goes, 32,000 pounds, the largest seizure in the United States history after I got busted with the 1,500 pounds. They found at the warehouse. They go, you were the only guy and you got off, and they are pissed. So then what happened was my lawyer said, you know, you have to cooperate. I go, all right. And he goes, you know, I'm not cooperating against Greg because I'll be dead. And he said, well, just pick somebody you didn't like in the group and blame it all on him. So they did a interrogation for about 8 hours. And the only way I can not get 10 to 15 years on that particular charge was I had to cooperate. Then the judge was able to be discretionary. They could give me a year and a day in jail. And so I went back in front of the same judge, Judge Kaplan. And he goes, Ted, he goes, you know, I understand you cooperated. The prosecutor says, no, he didn't. He didn't cooperate. He wasn't, he just told us lies. And he goes, how many hours were you in interrogation? I go, I believe 7 or 8 hours. The prosecutor says it was 8 hours. And I had a guy named John Sales and Roy Block. Now, John Sales was the prosecutor for him and Giuliani when they got Nixon out of the White House. So he was a really, established federal prosecutor in his day, and all of the prosecutors around the country really respected him. So he's really honest and had integrity. So when the judge told them, okay, you mean he lied for 6 hours, 7 hours? And they go, that's right. He lied for 6 hours. And you kept on getting all this. You didn't get any information for 6 hours, but he was lying, and everything he was saying he was lying, but you stayed there for 6 hours? He goes, yes, Your Honor. He goes, that does not make any sense. He goes, I think that's not even relevant, not even close to the truth. He goes, I believe he cooperated. So the judge says, I got to sentence you. He goes, and I can give you a year and a day in county jail or 18 months in state penitentiary. So of course, my lawyer says we'll take 18 months, and I go, hold on, Your Honor. I go, I think my lawyer has a little bit of a math problem. He said to me, Ted, no, I don't. I go, well, can I talk to my counsel outside? He goes, sure. I'll let him talk to him outside. So I go outside. I come back in. I go, Your Honor, I'll take the 18 months. He goes, well, Ted, obviously you went outside and he convinced you that 18 months is less than a year and a day. I don't understand. You want 18 months? You can have it. I'll give it to you. And what the judge didn't know, when you go to state penitentiary, for every day you're there, you get a day off if you're good. So my lawyer said, I'll have you on work release in 3 months. You'll be done in 9 months. I said, okay, let's do it.
Nice.
So the judge gave it to me, and I went to state prison and was out 90 days. And where did I come back to? I came right back to where I used to work at. And Barry Ehringer, who's a friend of mine, he started as a corporal like me. It's called the CC1. And now he's the chief of the work release. And I walk in there and he goes, Ted, you messed up your life. Look what you did. I go, Barry, I know what I've done. I don't need to be reminded of this. He goes, well, you better know this. He goes, if you screw me, he goes, it's going to be the last time. Now, this guy was the best man at my wedding.
Wow.
And he's my friend. And at work release, they usually have to get on a bus and you work from 9 to 5 and you come back to the camp. He let me drive my own car. And he said, and here's a beeper. If I beep you, you better come. And I said, okay, I will. And at that point in time, my brother still had my boat. And they were bringing in pot still. And there's a guy that owed me $1 million. And he said, I got good news. You need to come pick up your briefcase for $1 million. So I went over to Crackers. It was a place down in Miami. And he was a real good friend of Governor Graham's. And he was tied into all the law enforcement guys as well. He walks into the door. And he says, you want the good news or the bad news? I said, give me the bad news. He throws down the Miami Herald. He goes, man, you're fucked. I go, whoa. My picture's on it. 40 people indicted by the federal government. My beeper's going off. Beep, 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 beep. Didn't have cell phones back then, right? Mm-hmm. Don't you think you could have got that? I go, well, that's my friend Barry at the work release. Chief is calling me. He goes, you're one crazy mother. He goes, I can't believe it. He goes, here's your money. You want to count it? I go, no, I can trust you. He goes, I'm out of here. He leaves a briefcase with $1 million in it. And I call my brother and I said, meet me at my townhouse. I need to get some PVC pipe and I got to bury this underneath my deck before my wife gets home because she'll spend it all. I won't have nothing when I get out of jail. And then I go back to the payphone and I call Barry Ehringer, and Barry goes, Ted, the DEA, the FBI, Secret Service. He goes, the whole federal army is here. He goes, they're waiting for you. I go, Barry, calm down. He goes, calm down. He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, they're waiting for you. I don't know where you are. I go, just tell him you just talked to me. I'm on my way back to the camp. I go, I need about 3 hours. He goes, 3 hours, my ass. What do you mean? I go, I have a little bit of an accounting problem. I got to go. And I hung up the phone.
Wow.
That's all in the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
And I had some stories in prison too. I mean, I was with, I don't know if you remember Mercury Morris on the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
He was in prison with me at a place called Belgrade, and it was a shithole. It was a real tough prison.
Wow.
One of the toughest. I mean, I think it was 95% black, and the rest were all Cuban refugees. I think I was 3 white guys there.
How long's the book been out? I was trying to find that.
Actually, the book comes out December 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Gets released. I mean, I have some covers. I went to the book signing couple last weekend, but it's coming out the 3rd.
Well, by the time this episode comes out, it'll already have been out a month. So that's because your episode's coming out in January. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
I just got done doing an interview with Sean Hannity in Florida.
Nice.
And then I'm going on Joe Rogan in March.
Okay. Very cool.
So I got some good stuff going on, but it's the 3-time world champ, world champion kickboxer, world champion pot smuggler, an icon businessman into childcare.
So I wanted to ask you, talking about the businessman, what went into founding World Films, and talk a little bit about that.
Well, Don Wilson.
Nice.
Don called me up. He says, Ted, he goes, I know you got some money. And he goes, I know you believe in me. He goes, I want you to fund one of my movies. And I said, well, let me think about it, Don. So I came out to California and we did one movie. It was called The Last Sentinel. Mm-hmm. And it did real well. It had Katie Sackhoff on it, and she was on a TV series at the time. And we did that, and I was the executive producer on The Last Sentinel. And then I did The Butcher, and I had Eric Roberts, I had Robert Davi, I had Keith David in it, and it was fun. I made like 3 or 4 movies And what I didn't know, back then there was the DVDs. That was like in the early '90s. They didn't have the technology that we have today, right? Basically, they had DVDs, and you'd have all the after the movie was made, and I funded it. Then you'd bring them to these distributors, and like Echo Bridge, and these are distributors. And you'd say, oh, God, there's 1 million DVDs sold out of Target and Kmart and all these places. It's doing great. Then you'd get a call. I'd get the accounting sheet, and I go, what are the returns, Joe? My CFO, what's this return crap? He goes, out of 1 million sold, they said they brought back 825. I go, wow, nobody buys 1 million and brings back 800,000 of them and said that they didn't want to. I go, that's bullshit. And I realized Hollywood, how much they screw you,
Yeah.
So, after 3 movies, I said, I was fortunate enough that, I made enough money on The Last Sentinel and The Butcher to break even. But I really didn't make any money. But, it was a good experience. Chris Penn, Sean Penn,
Nice.
Good friends of mine through Don. And, Don, made a good career on basically B movies, DVDs. And,
Yep.
He was able to stop fighting and do films. And that was really good. But that was fun. It was a fun time. I didn't make any money, but I didn't get hurt either.
Well, that's good. So over your martial arts career, is there one philosophy that you've learned that is at the top of your list that really stands out for you?
What I always tell people is my favorite topic is think, be, do. And, the challenges is never quit, never give up, and never say you can't.
Nice.
Those words are not my vocabulary.
I like
And,
that.
I never been on my back. I never been knocked down, thank God. And I don't plan on being knocked down. That's one of the biggest things I've always contributed to when I teach children or anybody.
That's cool. So did you ever do any weapons training over your career?
Yeah, I had nunchucks. I used to love nunchucks. I did a little bit of bow too, standing bow.
Okay.
That was fun. That was pretty cool.
Nice. How about worst martial arts related injury?
I think when I wasn't that good and I broke my nose a couple of times,
Yeah.
then I realized I need to go down and, because, martial arts, I don't know if you're aware of it and if you trained or not,
Mhm.
but martial arts, usually you got an inside, outside, move. You got a fist move to block. And when I went to Fifth Street Gym, I realized you don't even have to really block anything. All you got to do is move your freaking head. Move your head to the left just a little bit, and then you punch him when he misses. And then I realized counter punching was better than actually offense. You make the guy make the first mistake and you make him pay for it. So, I realized after I learned how to move my head, that I realized that, I wouldn't get broken noses anymore. That was Don and I were talking about it just this over the weekend. He goes, that second fight we had, he goes, it came to the decision, you won. He goes, but you had me stunned with that hook kick. I go, I know. He goes, but you didn't know it. I go, I know. He goes, but I was so afraid of your hands, I forgot about your feet, and you got me with a hook kick, and I was knocked down on my feet, but you didn't know it. I said, well, thanks for telling me 20 years later.
That's funny. So we talked a little bit about MMA at the beginning. So overall, are you a fan of that at all or not really?
Couple of fighters, I went to go see it with Joe Corley just about a month ago when forget who it was. They had a world title fight. It was, the guy lost, he lost his world title because he got taken down 4 times. I really don't understand the rules, but he was taken down 4 times, and they grappled and wrestled for 4 out of the 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And the kicking wasn't good. Straight leg kicking. There wasn't any. It wasn't like, you ever see Bill Wallace kick when he takes it, you bring your foot back and you pop it out, and you kick a guy in the face. It's none of that. It's sort of like leg kicking. And when they punch, they're swinging. I call it like a girl punch. That's what I call it. But basically, it's not, you're not twisting your hips and your body and shifting your weight like a boxer does,
Yeah.
It's just, the marketing is so good. Dana White was so right on when he came in and helped the 2 brothers there, the 2 gangsters, and turned it around. But the marketing is what created that sport. The fighters are kind of disappointing for me looking at a fighter. People love it though. People love it. I'm in the Fears, and it's a beautiful place in Vegas, and there's 17,000 people going crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like going to Joe Corey, what the fuck are they going crazy about? They're on the ground. The guy got out of a headlock or a scissor lock. And I go, I know, they're going crazy. I go, why? Because the guy got out of a scissor lock. And so it was like, it's kind of different, There was one or two fights that were really good, and I was sitting next to Joe Rogan. And Rogan goes, "This is the best fight I've ever saw in my life." And I go, "Dana White, show him just a clip of a couple of my fights." And he showed him. He goes, "That's you? Holy shit. That's good. Look at that kick in the face. Look at that guy go down." I go, "That's stand-up fighting. That's more exciting than this shit." He goes, "Well, we got to talk about that." I go, "I know, but I can't now." So he was announcing the blow by blows, but it's just not disrespecting the guys, because it's more, like I said, jiu-jitsu, more judo, and it's more grappling and wrestling. And people don't understand that, like, when I go into a martial arts MMA gym up here, and it's jiu-jitsu, and I go in, I tell the guys who I are, and they look at me like I'm some kind of stooge. And, I'm 6 years old, but I'm still in really good shape. And I'll spar around with you guys, but just know if you're going to come after me, I'm not going to grapple with you. I'm going to kick and punch you. And they go, "Yeah, that's fine. If you think you can kick me and punch me before I can grab you, that's fine." I go, "Good, rules on." And I'd hit a side kick with these guys, and they would just fold. Or, they'd come at me with a left or a right, and they would back up and say, like, "I can't get close to you." I go, "That's the point. You're not going to get close to me." So, and it's like, if you're a good stand-up fighter, first of all, the guy that's going to grapple and come after you, he may get you, but chances are, if you're good enough, I think a stand-up fighter will always beat an MMA fighter. That's my personal belief. And it's not just mine. It's Benny's. It's Don's. It's anybody that's really been a world champion kickboxer. There's no MMA guy that today, if we were in our prime, not us now, but if we were in our prime, there's no way those guys would be able to touch us.
Nice.
In my opinion.
I know I used to judge MMA locally. So over like a 3-state area, I judged about 1,000 fights over like 10 years. And I could always tell within about 30 seconds of the fight if they had a traditional martial arts background, if they actually knew how to throw a kick, if they really knew how to throw a punch, or if they were just up there brawling for beer money. You could tell pretty quick.
Even a lot of the world champs, when they throw a kick, it's a stiff leg kick. And, first thing you're taught is the whole thing about power on a kick or a punch. It's speed, and you cock it like a gun and you fire it like a gun. So, you cock your knee in tight, boom, and you pop it out. You don't throw it from the floor stiff-legged, where the guy can grab it and there's no power in it, So it's a whole different philosophy. And it's like I said, it's more of jiu-jitsu, judo, and it's more grappling,
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Listen, the reason why it's so popular, look at boxing. There is no more boxing.
Yeah.
There is no more stand-up kickboxing. So it has no competition, and it's got boxing in it, if you want to call it boxing. It's got arm swinging boxing in it. It's got straight leg martial arts kicking, and it's got jiu-jitsu sweeps, takedowns, and it's got all the sports put into one. And that's why it's so popular.
I'm actually excited. The state of Minnesota, where I used to be a licensed official, over the last 2 years, I think they've started actually sanctioning kickboxing now, and they don't have a lot of them, but it's slowly starting to make a comeback, which I'm excited about.
I mean, I was talking to Joe, and Joe really wants me to. Joe Crowley, he showed me his business plan, if you could believe it. It was like a 5-year business plan. The first year, losing $15 million. And I go, "Joe, stop." I go, I go, "It's a horrible plan." I go, "You want $20 million out of me. I'm willing to put up a credit line, but," I says, "I'm not going to write you a check." I said, "I'm going to, I watch my money and I follow my money, and I got to make sure that, whatever we spend that money on, I got to agree to it." And he says, that's fine. And I just said, like, "You're losing $15 million the first year." He goes, he goes, "Well, I'm buying the fighters." I go, "Who are you buying?" I go, you got to build up PKA guys. You got to build up fighters like we did in the 70s and 80s. And he had a 5-year business plan because he's 74 years old. He figures he didn't have that much time to build it. I said, "It can't be done in 5 years, Joe." I said, you can't just throw money. You can't build a business with money. I says, "Well, I'm talking about getting some MMA fighters that are in their 40s, converting them and giving them a guarantee for them to fight for us. But stand-up fighting, no martial arts, no grappling, knees, kick above the knees, punch above the waist." And I said, "That's great." I said, "But these guys are who?" He told me their names. And I'm going, "They're 45-year-old fighters, Joe. You can't build a business on 45-year-old fighters."
Yeah.
I go, "I don't care what kind of names they have. No one wants to see me. No one wants to see Don Wilson. We're in our 60s and 70s, but a 45-year-old fighter, they don't want to see them either. You want to see 20-year-old kids getting out there and fighting their hearts out, And that was the flaw in this plan. That's why I didn't invest in it."
Fingers crossed that hopefully he'll find a better way to make it work, because it would.
Yeah,
be,
I'm still sticking with Joe. I'm going to help him out the best I can. I just got to get him over the hump on trying to speed it up too fast. I mean, like he went around the country. He has 45 fighters that were good fighters that can start the PKA again. And I said, that's what you have to do. And he goes, but we need some of these 45-year-old MMA guys. I go, I don't think so. I said, but that's where it takes a little bit more time, because they're younger, to beat them up to to get them to a caliber of a world champion kickboxer. They can fight 10 to 12 rounds. But I believe stand-up kickboxing and PKA, it's time. If someone comes out and does it, it will crush MMA, I believe.
I would probably agree.
I mean, even if it didn't crush it, if it got 10% of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it sold for $40 billion, right? I mean, $4 billion. If you just got 10% of that $4 billion, I mean, you'd have a very successful business, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, fingers crossed. So,
yeah. So I'm going to help Joe.
Good. I have a few fun questions we use to wrap up the interview. Now, this one, maybe you actually have something you used, but let's say you were going to, step back into the ring, step into the cage, whatever. What would your walk-up song be? Or did you have one when you fought? Did they have walk-up songs back then? Is there a certain song that played when you were walking into the ring?
Yeah, it's funny. It was on my PM magazine. It was, it was Live and Die in L.A.
Nice.
It was called Live and Die in L.A. And I can't remember what the beat was, but it was a cool beat. It was like Live and Die in L.A.
That's cool. Nice. I don't think I've heard of that one. So
yeah. And
cool.
when Don calls me up, he goes, because he used to call me the Executioner. So he goes, this is the Dragon calling Executioner. Dragon, Executioner, wake up, call me up.
Nice. I like it.
Don calls me the Executioner.
That's cool.
He was the Dragon.
All right. How about, no, it doesn't have to be 2. I've had people get, or it doesn't have to be 4, I should say. I've had people give as few as 2 and as many as 8. But who are 3, 4, 5 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
4 or 5 best guys?
Yeah, just in you're like, if you were setting up your Mount Rushmore of martial arts, when I ask this question, people pick like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. People pick only their own instructors. So it's completely up to you.
Yeah, myself, as far as I'll clarify, I'll zero down the best world champions.
Okay.
That I know of, that I think that are legitimate guys, would be Steve Shepard, number 1.
Nice.
God rest his soul. Don Wilson, number 2. And then Benny Arquidez would be number 3.
Nice.
Bill Wallace, number 4. Not in that order.
Right.
And then I'd pick myself as number 5.
Nice. I like it. Hey, that's a good Mount Rushmore. All right. Now, other than your own book, favorite martial arts book?
There was one that I think was Papa Wynn. I can't remember the name of it. I'm trying to look it up on my phone.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it was Papa Wynn, but I can't find it. He wrote a book. I thought it was really good about martial arts. The true martial arts. He wrote a saying in the book. Let me see if I can find it. But there was a saying, and it said something like this. It said, I come to you with only my karate. My hands are empty, but I fear no man.
Mm-hmm.
I should be forced to defend myself. My honor or my principles should be at. I think it was
karate in my empty hand. That sounds
karate,
like Ed Parker.
Karate,
that Ed Parker's American Kempo Creed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was Ed Parker's book. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
My life or my death.
Should I be forced to defend myself, my honor, my family? Here are my weapons. Karate, my empty hands. Yeah.
You got it. Yeah, That was it. Yeah.
I used to have that in a frame on my wall, and I don't know what happened to it, but yeah.
So did I.
Yeah.
I have it in my garage.
That is cool.
I just went and looked at it just so I can tell you the answer.
Yeah, well, that's why I told you I lived in California for a year. I actually moved out there to train in American Kempo. That's why I was out there. So,
is that right?
Yeah.
I remember Steve Harvey. He was in Florida when I met him, but he was Shelton Parker's guy. He was Steve Harvey Hastings. I'm sorry, Harvey Hastings. And he was a big Kempo guy.
Okay,
like one of their top. He's one of his top black belts.
Nice. Okay. All right. How about a favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into video games?
I never got into the video games. I actually never even seen any of them.
Okay. No worries. That one's about 50-50 with my guest. A lot of them never played them. So, all right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
Favorite TV show? I think I have to go with Green Hornet.
Nice. That one's been getting picked a lot lately. A lot of people have said that one. I like it.
Yeah, Green Hornet. Yeah, with Bruce Lee. That was good.
Okay. Now this one, you obviously can't pick one that you were involved with. Favorite martial arts movie?
Favorite martial arts movie? I think I'd have to go with, Chuck Norris on that one.
Okay. Any specific one or?
I think it was Lost Ranger, or that was a TV show. That was
Yeah, that was TV show. That was Walker, Texas Ranger.
There was one he did with Bill Wallace. He was like, Bill Wallace played the bad guy. I can't remember the name.
I remember which one you're talking about. I don't remember either, but I remember which one you're talking about. Okay. Good one.
Bill Wallace.
All right. How about any movie you've ever seen? Favorite movie fight scene? Is there just one fight scene that stands out for you?
I think it'd have to be with remember that show Kung Fu with what was his name?
David Carradine.
David Carradine, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fight scene where he was fighting someone with a bow, and he had empty hands, and he blocked it with his feet and his hands.
Nice.
And I think that's what got me into knowing that I wanted to stay in martial arts.
Okay, cool.
He was an inspiring guy for me. That was before Chuck Norris inspired me, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Ted, seriously, this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to read the book. I'm trying to get really ahead on my episodes so I can actually take a little break during the holidays and maybe read a book or two. So I'm hopefully going to read the book over the holidays and complete it. But I'm definitely excited to read it, and hopefully it'll go well for you, continued success. But before I let you go, is there anything that I forgot to mention, or we want to just be sure we get out there quick before we wrap it up?
One thing I do want to mention is that, the proceeds to the book, there's a QR code on the back. And,
oh, yes.
I was my current business my son runs right now. It's called Children of America. And we have, 70 locations in 15 states. And I created the Pryor Family Foundation. Okay. And there's that kid left behind. And, all the proceeds in the book and also the screenplay that I've been offered already next year, all the profits will go to the Pryor Foundation. And what the Pryor Family Foundation does is we have about 30% we have about 10,000 children from ages of 6 weeks to 12 years old come to our schools, and about 35% of them are funded by me. Okay. Because they're children that don't have money, underprivileged, and they're left behind. That's what I was. And, I would come from a very, poor family background, and I was that kid left behind. And my theory in life, and ever since martial arts, right through to the childcare centers, Children of America, I'm kind of partial to helping people that can't help themselves, and it's no fault of them. They just don't have the money, don't have the wherewithal. So Pryor Foundation, right now we probably have about 500 children that we support for their education and childcare, and we give them a chance just like any other kid can get a chance. So that's great. That's a great cause. Very important to us. Yeah, and when the episode comes out, I'll put a link for that if you want to send me a link just for the Family Foundation, and I'll put a link for the book. I'll put a link for your website. That's great. Whatever you need me to, but that's great. I'll send you a link of that. In fact, I got the QR code. I can just perfect. I'll have Katie, because she has all that information. I'll have Katie send you the link and make sure I'll tell her to send you a book as well. Yeah, I got the book. So yeah. Okay, cool. She did send me a physical copy of the book. So okay. Yeah. On the back of that book is the QR code. Yep, I see that. Cool. Right on the back of the cover. Awesome. Well, seriously, Ted, this has been a blast. I love hearing your story, and hopefully we can meet in person someday, maybe at a book signing or something like that. But that would be fantastic. And if you get a chance to, go on tedpryor.com, you can watch some my old fights, and you can judge if I was good or not. Awesome. We will do that. Cool. Well, sir, I truly appreciate this, and I look forward to getting the episode out on January 9th and letting people hear more about your story. Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and appreciate everything you're doing.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.